We had to move this filming indoors. We got hit up with some rain, got a flat tire, so my outdoor filming kind of got nixed. So we're going to do this inside. But I want to cover scent control in this video. We're going to talk about what you need to do to control your scent before you go hunting, what you need to do to control your scent while you're hunting, and we're going to cover, should you use a cover scent, and it's going to be a pretty deep dive into scent control in regards to coyotes. One of the things I want to do though is, we're all familiar with hunting deer. Many of us have hunted deer and then we learned to hunt coyotes. You may have heard before in the past that deer will alter their course of travel when an intrusive human scent comes within 600 to 700 yards. There's a lot of research out there that suggests that for a coyote, and we're talking about big woods deer, big woods coyotes that aren't normally around human intrusion. Coyotes, rather than 600 to 700 yards, they're going to alter their course of travel at more like 1,500 yards to a mile. And when you compare the actual physiology of a coyote's nose, they have about 220 million olfactory receptors in their nose, but a deer has anywhere between 250 to 297 million olfactory receptors in their nose. So you could argue that deer have a better sense of smell. However, and this is a however in quotations, because deer obviously have a bigger nose than coyotes, so they can contain more receptors. But what it comes down to with coyotes is their ability to filter through and make associations with a large volume of multiple scents at one time. And they more quickly tie particular scents to particular events or associations. And I want to give you two stories from research where this was displayed in a somewhat accurate way. The first would be, there's some research that came out of Michigan, I think it was in the late 80s, early mid 90s, where long before snaring became an acceptable way of catching coyotes and fox and cats, there was a lot of money spent on researching how to get a higher percentage catch rate on coyotes in particular. And they learned that a coyote would spend 30% more time at a foot trap, a foothold set, if they used multiple scents, multiple gland lures, urine, multiple different smells coming out of that set. A coyote would spend 30% more time at that set, giving the trapper a 30% greater chance of actually getting that coyote to step in the trap. So I found that was very interesting. The other anecdotal story came from the money that was spent in Texas and Arizona. The USDA, I believe it was, some state agencies, and some private funding went into an eradication program that was taking place in Texas and Arizona and other places where there was large sheep farms. And one of the things they did is they went out and they took portions of horse meat, cattle meat, sheep meat, just basically animals that died on farms were given to these officials and these agencies, and the meat was poisoned, and they would go out on a Ranger or a four-wheeler with a big barrel full of this meat and just drop little pieces of meat all throughout the landscape along the farm roads. And then they also experimented with some cyanide explosive capsules that they would put in the ground with a little piece of meat, and the coyote would grab the meat and it would pop, and a bunch of powder would fly up in the coyote's face, and they would crawl off in the bushes about 50 yards and die. And while all that was going on, there was a whole bunch of raccoons and possums and skunks, and it was just a swath of carnage. And yes, they killed everything, including fox and probably some bobcat, but they killed a lot of coyotes. But then they realized that their kill rate on coyotes began to dip. It began to slow, and they weren't having any longer an effect on the coyote population using these methods. But what they did notice is the coyotes would come along and they would drop scat, they would pee, they would mark where the locations of this poisoned meat was laid. The coyotes were beginning to put two and two together, and they realized, the adult coyotes realized that they needed to protect their young, protect their offspring, protect their buddies from these droppings of this poisonous meat, because everything was dying, and they associated it with that. And it's really funny to read that research and to see how much the state trappers and the people that were placing all this stuff, how they were like, wow, this animal's really intelligent. And so I say all that to say, I'm telling you these stories because you got to realize here in the East, if you're hunting in the big woods, how important scent is to your setup. And so, we're all familiar with plenty of hunting stories where, a guy has a mature buck and he knows where his bedroom is, and he goes over there and he sets a tree stand in, and the wind swirls, and all day long that big buck is sitting in his bedding area downwind of that bow hunter up in a tree. But that bow hunter's scent is not strong enough that the deer knows, hey, there's a hunter after me, but he's not posing me any immediate threat, so the deer just hunkers down and stays there. That is not something that coyotes generally will be found doing. When they have an intrusive human scent, they will absolutely move off. They will vacate an area at least far enough away to get no scent at all. They're not going to remain in that area. Secondly, with their ability to work through multiple scents at one time, they have a better association of what scents mean, and they tie that to experiences. So when you think about that, as you as a caller, you go out in the woods and set up on some coyotes, and you put your call volume, you take that favorite rabbit call and you put it up on 20 and you let her eat. And maybe you call some coyotes in and you shoot one. There was 3 or 4 that came in, or maybe 2, and they come in, you shoot one, the rest of them go downwind, or they had a traumatic experience. At some point, they're going to revisit that site and know, okay, not only was there a human here, but they're going to give that human scent a name. And they're going to be like, okay, that was Jeff. Jeff smells like this, and he killed one of our buddies today, and we had a traumatic experience. So when you re-enter the woods in that area and you go out there and you put that same rabbit call up on 20, you might be downwind of that pack of coyotes, but they're going to be looking for Jeff or Bill or Bob or Mike, whatever the person's name, whoever you are, whatever your name is. When you go out there and have an encounter with coyotes, and you go back to the same piece of ground with the same sound at the same volume, and you smell like Jeff or Bill or Mike, they're going to be looking for Jeff, Bill, or Mike when they hear that sound. They are that keen on identifying that smell, and they're going to be looking for that smell. And so what are they going to do? They're going to go downwind, probably 300 yards of you, circle you, to try to confirm, is that the same smell that happened before? They're just extremely adept at putting 2 and 2 together, and you need to realize that. So what does that mean? What does that mean for scent? Well, it means that they're going to associate experience with scent, and you got to get that into your head. And so that means you're going to want to do a different experience every time you go. You want to call from a different location, which means you're probably going to need a different wind. You're going to want to use a different sound that maybe is more appropriate at a smaller volume. You may have to get closer to them than you were before. There's a whole lot of things that you need to learn to add variability to your set so that they're more likely to respond. If you stay off of them, well, man, I called at them and now I don't know where they are. The last 3 times I was in here, I haven't had any luck. Probably the last 3 times you're in there, they knew you were there. Like they either came in an hour after you left and investigated. Yep, that was Jeff again. That was Mike again. So I really encourage you, when you go back in after coyotes that you've already had an encounter with and they've gotten your scent, it's really important that you get closer. You push the envelope a little bit, you get a little bit closer, but you need to use different sounds, a different tactic from a different place, so that there's some variability in what you're doing. And then as far as scent goes, the only thing I can tell you is, if you do right by this thing right here, this thing will take care of you. If you don't push it with the wind, you're going to have an advantage, because there's nothing that you can do at home, in the car, on the way there, as far as scent products and all that, to mitigate a bad decision on whether or not you should have called because the wind swirled one time as you were approaching those coyotes. As soon as that wind swirled, they smell Jeff, you're toast. You might as well go somewhere else. So if you do right by this, you have a chance. So this is the most important thing that you can do to manage your calling in the woods. And there's a lot of things that you could talk about on call placement and all that, but that's for another video on a different day. But having said all that, is it worth doing, body wash, shampoo? Is it worth doing scent killer spray? Is it worth doing dryer sheets, or wipes? Do I need to wear scent-free deodorant? Do I need to do a cover scent? This is fox urine. This is coyote gland lure. These, by the way, this is from Mark June. If you don't know who Mark June is, you need to look him up. He has a book about trapping coyotes, and you will learn a lot about coyote biology in that book. And I think it sells for about $20 on Amazon. I encourage you to go buy his book. I don't get paid by any of these products here. Everything I've showing you here on this table, I paid for. So what works, what doesn't? I do encourage you to use some kind of body spray. You got to be clean. The less scent you give off, the less likelihood that something's going to smell you. But technically, if you do right by this, you could smell like a bacon cheeseburger when you go out there. And as long as you're doing right by this, it's not going to matter. But I still, from my bow hunting days, I can't go hunting and not washing hunting soap. The sprays, I don't know. I got mixed feelings about this stuff. I think this is marketing bull crap. I did take Silver Scent, which I don't even know if that's still around or not. But I had a hat one time back in the day that was in the work truck all day. And it's the bill of my hat. It just stank, man. I've been wearing that hat for like 3 weeks. And I took it off and I smelled it. And I was like, dude. And we had some Silver Scent in the truck. So I just like doused that thing. And I came back at lunch and I smelled it. And dude, it didn't smell like what it smelled like before. So Silver Scent might be worth it. But I do use deodorant. Obviously this stuff has aluminum zirconium in it. So that's a decision you need to make, whether or not you want to wear that. There are some deodorants that are less smelly and don't have aluminum in them. I don't know. Those things don't work as great. I do use this mainly during hunting season. I don't use it during daily life if I can help it. I do use the dryer sheets, and I do use a scent bag for my clothes. And you can get a couple of these for $35 on Amazon. And I put warm weather clothes in one and cold weather clothes in the other. Throw some fresh earth in there. Yeah, I kind of treat it like bow hunting. I don't know how much it helps, because basically with coyotes, if you're not doing this right, they're going to smell you. But you want to do everything you can. Now, the one important tool I do recommend is these little washcloths. And, when you're on a hot hunt, especially in the early season, it is a good idea to take an extra shirt, a 2-gallon Ziploc bag, empty, or you can put these in it, and halfway through your day, just take that shirt off, put it in that bag, take some of these are dead downwind there again, I'm not getting compensated. I don't get free product or anything like that. This is really one of the only companies that makes these washcloths. I think Wildlife Research, I think they might make some. But it is a good idea to use these to wipe down with halfway through a hot day. And I also use those to wipe down the caul every so many sets. If I'm sweating and my pack's a little sweaty and my caul's going in and out of my pack, by every, halfway through the day, I'll take a wipe and just wipe the caul down. But really, the main thing is setting up correctly. You want the caul to be maybe 10 yards upwind of you, and you want about a 30-yard window from the caul to where the coyote might show up. And that means that's going to be about 20 yards from you. And you really want to call in a crosswind if you can, and give the coyote a pathway, the illusion of safety, by giving them some sort of a skidder trail, a little crease or ravine, a little dip in the ground to walk in, or it could be a long skinny point that goes down into some bottom land that you think they might be down in the swamp or something. And one of the best game trails up out of there is on this long finger. You might set up on that finger and give them a way that they probably already are feeling comfortable walking on in their normal daily travels at night or whenever at twilight. Find something that they might be comfortable walking on and make that be the path to get into you, and have it be fading towards your downwind, but be able to see that last 30 yards or so to your downwind, so that when they pop out at 20 yards, boom, you got them. What else? Cover scents. I've used them before, but because of the coyote's curiosity, you're probably going to be drawing too much attention to yourself. I would stay away from using gland lure. This stuff is really pungent, but if you've got a particularly tough group of coyotes to get in on, it might be a good idea, particularly in December, in January when mating season is coming, to maybe throw some red fox urine on your boots, maybe sprinkle a little bit on the tree behind you. It might be just enough to, coyotes are a little bit more amped up at that time of year. That would be the only time of year I would use something like that. I would stay away from any kind of canine scent or feline scent in the early part of the season, because you're more likely to tip off, those younger coyotes get that smell. They may not be as prone. They may be a little timid coming in, and you might actually have one not come directly in and have the confidence it needs to just walk in on you. So cover scents, I've used them, not with any great success, but I will say using like fox urine or coon urine might be a good way if you've got a really hard group of coyotes to get in on and you've got them pinned down, you know where they're at, and it's kind of like December going into January. I could see where a cover scent like that might be something that would give that variability that you need when coyotes are a little more amped up, a little more defensive. That might be something you might consider using. But really, I think the main thing is try to be as scent-free as you possibly can. Try not to eat fast food in your vehicle on the day of your hunt. It's a good idea to pack your lunch in a cooler or a sealed up bag or something, and eat foods while you're hunting that aren't very smelly. You don't want to open a can of sardines and eat that, during your hunt. But, maybe some beef jerky sticks or something like that, but have it be something that's not going to be stinking up your car. It's probably better to eat outside, when you get back to your vehicle. Other than that, happy hunting. Hope this information helped you guys. If I forgot anything, just leave a comment if you got any questions about scent. I did have one person give me a question one time: do you ever hunt coyotes out of tree stands? And the answer to that is heck no. I ain't carrying a tree stand. That's why I don't deer hunt anymore. But I could see where if you're a saddle hunter and you've got some coyotes in your neck of the woods, and you can get up and down out of trees quickly with a saddle, I could see where that might be a tactic that could be helpful, and it would certainly help you with scent control. So yeah, that's all I got on scent. Hope you guys have a good early season, and we'll be shouting at you soon. So have a good one. Take it easy. Thanks for watching.